the road that vanished. The morning sun glared off the hood of my truck as I drove down Maple Ridge Lane, my usual route to the highway. But that day, something was different. Halfway down the gravel road, a brand new metal gate blocked the path, with a shiny, private HOA property sign bolted to the center. I slammed the brakes, dust rising around me. "You've got to be kidding me," I muttered. That road wasn't just a path, it was my only access to the main road. I stepped out, boots crunching the gravel, and scanned the area. Just 2 days ago, this had been open land. Now the homeowners association had built a barrier overnight, claiming it as community property. My property wasn't even part of their HOA, but they had decided my driveway violated neighborhood boundaries. As I stood there fuming, a familiar voice echoed from across the fence. "Morning, Ethan," called Karen, the HOA president, her usual smirk in place. She stood there in her floral blouse, clipboard in hand like a sheriff with a badge. "You can't just block my road, Karen," I snapped. "That's the only way to get my truck out." She adjusted her sunglasses. "Technically, Ethan, this road runs through HOA-maintained land. You've been using it illegally for years. Consider this rectified." Rectified. The word hit me like a slap. I took a deep breath. "So what do you expect me to do? Fly out of my driveway?" Karen smiled. "You can submit a petition to the board. Maybe we'll grant you access if you agree to pay the maintenance fees and follow our property guidelines." That was it. Their plan. They wanted control, to drag me under their HOA umbrella. I turned and stared at the gate, then back at my land, a few acres sloping down toward the creek that ran behind it. That creek separated my property from the old county road on the far side. An idea started forming. If they wanted to block my road, fine. I'd make my own way out. That night, I sat at my kitchen table with a cup of coffee and my old notebook. I started sketching calculations, elevations, load estimates. Years back, I'd worked in construction. I knew enough to make something functional. A private bridge over the creek, right through a sliver of their land. A grin crept across my face. "You want to play this game, Karen? Let's play." The next morning, I ordered steel beams and concrete panels. The supplier asked if I had a permit. "Working on it," I lied. Karen and her HOA might have taken my road, but they didn't take my freedom. By the time they realized what I was doing, I'd already started pouring the foundation for my revenge bridge. The bridge war begins. 3 days later, the hum of machinery echoed across the quiet neighborhood. My rented excavator dug deep into the soil near the creek while I directed. The crew of 2 old buddies from my construction days. Piles of rebar, concrete molds, and steel beams surrounded us like a fortress. I could feel eyes watching from across the field, neighbors whispering, phones raised. It didn't take long before Karen appeared, marching down the slope in her sun hat and pink sneakers, clutching her ever-present clipboard like a weapon. "Ethan, what on earth are you doing?" she shouted over the engine noise. I climbed out of the excavator and wiped my hands on my jeans. "Building a bridge," I said simply. Karen's mouth fell open. "You can't build here. This land belongs to the HOA." I grinned. "Actually, Karen," I checked the county maps. "This little stretch by the creek is technically unclaimed easement land. You don't own it, and neither do I. But nothing says I can't build over it." Her face turned red. "You're trespassing." "Nope. I'm engineering." Karen stormed off, already dialing someone on her phone, probably the county inspector or the HOA attorney. I just laughed and climbed back into the excavator. Over the next few days, the rumor mill exploded. Some neighbors cheered me on. Others muttered that I was reckless. By the end of the week, the HOA had posted signs all around my property. "Construction halted by order of Maple Ridge HOA." Nice try. The signs lasted maybe 5 minutes before I took them down. When the inspector finally came, I met him at the gate. "You can't just build a bridge without a permit," he said. "Sure I can," I replied. "Temporary farm access structure, not a public road." He sighed, clearly tired of Karen's drama. "Just make sure it doesn't collapse, okay?" That evening, I welded the first main beam in place, sparks lighting the night sky. It was hard work, but every blow of the hammer felt like justice. My property, my route, my rules. A few days later, I woke to the sound of engines again, but this time, they weren't mine. HOA board members and 2 county trucks were parked near the creek. Karen was there, pointing furiously at my bridge. "You can't keep doing this, Ethan." We'll sue. I walked up calmly, coffee in hand. Go ahead. But by the time your lawyer files a complaint, I'll already be driving over it. Her expression froze. You're insane. I smiled. No, just determined. By sunset, the structure stood half-finished, sturdy, gleaming, and defiant. The neighborhood was split, the HOA furious, and I was just getting started. Because once the bridge was done, I wasn't stopping there. I had plans to make sure they'd never control my land again. Sabotage and stubborn steel. The next week, I noticed something odd. A few bolts from the bridge's support beams had gone missing overnight. At first, I blamed it on raccoons, or maybe my own forgetfulness, but the pattern was too clean. Someone had unscrewed them. Karen. The thought burned in my chest. She'd warned me I was breaking HOA code, and now it looked like she'd taken matters into her own hands. I installed trail cameras the next day, hiding them in the nearby trees. That night, while rain pelted the half-finished bridge, I sat on my porch, sipping coffee and watching the live feed on my phone. And there she was, Karen, umbrella in one hand, flashlight in the other, creeping along the bridge with a wrench. She was actually loosening bolts in the dark, muttering to herself about safety violations. I hit record, every second captured. By morning, the video had already spread through the neighborhood group chat. Neighbors who once ignored me were now furious at the HOA for crossing the line. One message read, "She could have killed someone." Karen showed up at my property the next afternoon, face pale and shaking with anger. You think you can just film me and embarrass me like that? I crossed my arms. You tried to sabotage a construction site. Karen, you're lucky I didn't call the cops. Her lips pressed into a thin line. You'll regret this. Ethan, the HOA board is preparing a full legal motion against you. You'll pay for this bridge one way or another. I leaned in closer, voice calm. Good luck stopping something that's already built. Because it almost was. That weekend, I and my two buddies worked around the clock. The rain had turned the soil to muck, but the foundation held strong. We poured the last concrete panels, tightened the final bolts, and by Sunday evening, the bridge was complete. A gleaming arc of steel and timber over the creek, wide enough for my truck to cross. Neighbors gathered along the edge, snapping photos and cheering. Even those who used to side with Karen were impressed. It wasn't just a bridge anymore, it was a statement. Karen stood at a distance, phone in hand, probably calling another lawyer. But this time, she didn't have the power she thought she did. I'd filed paperwork that morning declaring the bridge a private easement, structure with the county, fully legal, built on the unclaimed strip of land they couldn't touch. When I drove across it for the first time, the sound of the tires on the new boards was pure victory. The HOA had cut off my road, but I'd built something better, stronger, mine. But deep down, I knew Karen wasn't finished yet. She wasn't the type to give up without one final strike. And when it came, it would shake the whole neighborhood. The final stand. 2 weeks after I'd finished the bridge, peace finally seemed possible. I could drive freely again. The HOA's gate was nothing but an eyesore behind me. And even the local news had run a short piece calling me the man who built his own road to freedom. But, of course, Karen wasn't done. It started with letters, official-looking envelopes left in my mailbox, each stamped with HOA notice of violation. They claimed my bridge was an unauthorized structure endangering community safety. I wasn't, even in their HOA. But that didn't stop her from mailing threat after threat. Then, one morning, I woke up to flashing lights. 2 county officers stood by my gate, Karen beside them, smug as ever. Mr. Cole, one officer began. We received a complaint regarding an unsafe, unpermitted structure over HOA property. Karen folded her arms. We'll be removing it today. I walked them to the creek. The bridge gleamed in the sun, solid and flawless. Go ahead, I said calmly. Check it yourselves. The officers inspected every beam, every bolt. One of them even bounced on it a little, then turned to Karen. Ma'am, this thing's built better than half the county roads. He's in the clear. The land beneath it isn't HOA property, it's county easement. Karen's jaw dropped. That's impossible. It's public record, the officer replied. You might want to stop filing false claims, ma'am. She stormed off, furious and humiliated, muttering something about legal appeals. I just stood there, watching her go. But I wasn't content to just win quietly. That weekend, I hung a new sign at the entrance of my bridge. Freedom Pass, built without HOA permission. It became a local legend. People from nearby towns drove out just to see it. A few even asked for advice on dealing with their own HOA nightmares. The more Karen tried to bury the story, the more viral it went online. One evening, as I stood on the bridge watching the sunset, Karen walked up quietly. No clipboard this time. No phone. Just defeat in her eyes. "You made your point," she said softly. "Wasn't trying to make a point," I replied. "Just trying to live on my own land." She sighed, glancing at the bridge. "It's impressive." I smirked. That's one word for it. Without another word, she turned and walked away. The next HOA meeting minutes, yes. I got a copy, stated that all future disputes with non-members must go through county review first. In other words, they couldn't bully anyone the way they tried to bully me. As I crossed my bridge that night, headlights gliding over the polished steel, I couldn't help but smile. They built a wall. I built a way over it. And that bridge would stand long after the HOA's rules crumbled into dust.